Today I'm talking to Fedor Holz, one of the very best players in the world over the last decade. We're going to talk about Triton Series, Poker Code, his new life with his girlfriend who lives in Berlin and he lives in Vienna, and of course much more. This episode is powered by our partners at Every Game Poker and UC Stakes Poker. I'm really looking forward to this episode and I hope you do too. And hit that subscribe button if you like what you see. So welcome to a new episode of The Sweetest Deal. Today I'm talking to Fedor Holz, who's been around for more than a decade and known to the poker community. Fedor, how are you today?
Pretty good. I've been up for 2 hours and I feel good today.
Is that early for a poker player to be up at 9 in the morning on a long Friday?
I would say for the average, or at least what I used to do, it's on the earlier side.
Yeah, it's interesting how people try to balance, sometimes go into a more normal life between tournaments and so on. What kind of guy are you? Are you the one that usually stay in the rhythm, depending on how many tournaments, live tournaments you play?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing poker for over 10 years now, so over the years, my approach has changed. Right now, I focus a bit more on the very high rollers live and don't play that much online. So my lifestyle is a bit more, let's say, 9 a.m. wake up and I go to bed latest at like 1 a.m. So it's different than it used to be. Back then when I was 20, 21, there were not very many nights where I went to bed before 2 a.m.
No, that's right. I mean, it was basically online that you really started your career, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
How did you come into poker? What made you find it, and what was the inspiration?
The very typical, I think, that a lot of players went through is I played with some of my friends. We had like a little home game when we were 15, 16, played for a few euros, and then two of my friends started making some money online, and they inspired me and motivated me, and then I started playing more, and then by 18, 19, I was hooked and really passionate and played a lot more.
Yeah, well, what was it? Obviously, some people say that when they play against their friends, I wasn't even the best one, but maybe you found out that you liked it and you had a...
No, they beat me. They beat me all the time.
Yeah, they did.
So yeah. He actually, one of my friends, he was very, very smart, and he kept a record. Actually, he, like, every day, every result, he had he created a website where he put it in, and then you saw a graph of like two of them were just winning all the time, and basically everyone else was losing. So
I'm sure he reminds you of that still, right?
Actually, no. We haven't talked about it in a long time.
Okay. What was it then? I mean, there's something. Some people say that they have some peaks, some strengths, and some weaknesses, or they're above average on everything. What was it specifically that made you the right guy for poker, you think?
I can be very passionate when I'm trying to achieve something. Like, I really like the depth of the game, so I had a lot of internal motivation. I really like exploring things in depth, so I think that's a personal character trait that was very helpful. I think I have a good ability to recognize patterns, and I think especially in poker with lots of data points. In the beginning, let's say the data points I looked at were not very valuable or strong, but the more I got into it, the more professional I took it, the more that skill helped me. And I would say my third skill that helps me a lot for live poker is just kind of a sense of intuition and a good sense for other players and what they might think and how they might approach the game. And that really helped me to be one step ahead in a lot of situations.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because you can see in people's eyes sometimes how strong their eyes are in a way. It's hard to explain. And when I see your eyes when you're at the poker table, you have very strong eye. You look very strong. Is that something that can make your opponents a bit insecure?
I think so. I think it's more. I think there's, to a certain level, there's always imposter syndrome for basically everyone on that degree. Especially when you maybe haven't won everything or like don't have the accolades. There's a part where it's like, oh, did he see something? Did he pick something up? Is there? You make an out of line hero call, like it rattles people sometimes, and that's definitely something I wanted to use as much to my advantage as possible. I see it a bit like a free roll. So let's say I did see nothing, at least I want to make him think I did see something. So
That's
that was
interesting.
always my strategy. Yeah.
So where I mean, I'm Swedish, and I know that there was a community in Sweden that was quite famous in the like 2002 and the next coming years. There was a very good community in Sweden with quite a few famous poker players, Erik 123 and Bengt Sonnert and all those. Was it a good? Where did you come from the beginning? And was that like in Germany at that time a good community for developing poker?
It was a great community. Actually, most of it happened. There were basically two communities where a lot of people hung out, and one was called IntelliPoker. The other one was called just Poker Strategy, which a lot of people know. But there was a German forum, so basically all the German players were in this in some way. And I would say there were like, let's say, lots of smaller groups, but kind of two levels. Like there were the high stakes players already who were like kind of communicating to some degree, and then like the more mid stakes players. And I just connected with a lot of people in both of those groups. I tried to identify who the motivated and aspiring ones are around me, and I also tried to connect to better players to learn from them. And that was very, very helpful for me. And that's how I would say a big part of my success and how I started out.
Yeah, well, can you give me a couple of names of those in the high stakes contingents that inspired you and you taught from maybe and became friends with maybe?
I mean, this is really long ago, and a lot of those names are actually don't really play anymore, or like faded out even maybe a few years after. So I remember one who actually gave me quite some valuable input. His name was Bambucha88.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to him, long time ago.
Yeah.
But it's more like I think my crew of Rainer Kempe was in there, so you know him, and Steffen Sondheimer a bit later, Cora Aldemir, Julian Thomas. Like it's basically all the guys you know as well.
Yeah, of course. There was a like the Deutsche Bank was something that was mentioned for a while. Is that something that you were part of? Or what was your thought of that expression and that kind of thought?
I've never heard this actually, but I think that refers to something maybe a bit else. There was one player who was very successful early on, and actually he didn't give me like input, but he's like, he saw an opportunity, I think, from his point of view. But for me, it was also very nice that he believed in me pretty early on. Like he started buying my high roller action. So his name is Johnny. And he was he was pretty unknown, and like people didn't really talk about him out of respect for him as well, like to not drag him in the light. But he approached me and he was like, "Hey man, do you want to play high rollers? I think you have the capabilities and you have the skill set to do so." And I was like, "Yeah, let's like." I mean, I think I pushed it as well. I started selling more, and then he was like, "Yeah, I just want to buy all your action. Like, let's do it." And I sold basically all my hero or the majority of it to him for a long time.
Okay, and usually this is an interesting question, because when people come with you and help you out and kind of support you and help you develop your skills early in your career, is that something that you thought of when you became successful? Some players start to take their own action, of course. Did you let him follow you later on as well, even if you didn't need to? If you know what I mean.
I think that understanding is definitely something that settled in more with the years. So when I was 21, I was not aware or not thinking as much about things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I found myself oftentimes in that struggle of, let's say, especially around markups. So, I play 100K, I maybe sell 50% action, and now it's okay. I can get 1.25 there, or like 1.22, and he maybe offers me 1.18. Like, do I now, give it to him, or do I give it to someone who's paying more? Like it's, and I found myself like I was willing to give him action for like maybe a little bit less, but like I was more like, no, I want to get the best price. I just want to get the most competitive offer. I actually do things much, much different right now. So now it's more about I even if I would get more money on the open market, I always sell cheaper to like my close friends, and it just feels better. I just want to keep the money where I
in the family.
enjoy.
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah. I understand that, and that's nice. And maybe you can afford it in another way than you were in a situation to do back in those days. Was it early? Because you took a pretty big leap quite early into the high rollers. What was it? Did you ever feel nervous about it or scared because it was hard to? No one could see it anyway. Was it just natural for you?
I don't remember how nervous I was, but I was definitely excited, and I think physiologically, nervousness and excitement are basically the same reaction. So I don't think I was like super nervous going in. I was just like, hey, this is super fun. Like I want to go out there, compete, play with the best. But I definitely struggled in the beginning. I think I played like 12 to 15 bullets with no cash, and I just saw like I busted really fast too. Like this was just stretched over multiple weeks too, because back then you travel to one stop, there's maybe 2 high rollers, then the next stop there's 2 high rollers. So I played like 6 or 7 stops with like 0 cash, and I was just like, man, these guys, they always the right call, like always the better hand. I was just, what's going on? Like I can't seem to beat them. And then I went on this quest to just analyze their game. I looked at every content piece, YouTube, like anything, any hand they've ever played. I just analyzed it. I noted down very meticulously like different exploits that I think are good against each player. And then from then on, I also started working with Elliot, and I think that mix just started kicking into like, I think I was one of the biggest winners in those fields, and then it materialized into results.
Yeah, for those who doesn't know, Elliot, who was that?
So Elliot Rowe is my mindset coach for I feel like I'm getting old because I start saying these things like I've been working with him for 8 years now, which is it's
okay. Das habe ich online zu Äthiopisches gefunden.
Okay.
Schau mal.
I don't know what Siri is doing, but
yeah.
So I've been working with Elliot for 8 years now, and it's been a massive boost to my life, to my poker career, mostly because whenever there's a topic that comes up that I'm challenged by, where I feel like there's something like tension or a blocker, I don't really know, I play a hand and I just feel like there's something, then I have a place to dissect this and reflect this and then find a way to improve on this going forward. And that's just been incredible, and on and off the felt, just a huge improvement for my life.
Yeah, of course, on the felt, I mean, obviously it's one of the most the most common questions among people who have seen you play is obviously, what was it there? It must have been a moment or like a period of time where you're like suddenly just what was it, gradually growing, or was it almost like a moment where you felt like I got it, and then after that you was just crushing for a while? I mean, what was that? I mean, you said that you were studying a lot, but did you really feel it, that you were kind of going into another phase or something?
I mean, I think that what's often misjudged is like I don't think that like in the end it's all very mathematical. Like I think my win rate was one of the highest in that field. I'm very, very confident about that. And the reason is because I think some of the players were not really studying or like trying to find edges. I think that was one thing. So I improved, I analyzed their game, I dissected how they play and what to do against them, and they didn't so much. So I would say maybe only 10 or 20% of the field were like really dedicated to try to like get better. And most of the others were just there because they've been playing high rollers for a long time and they're just kind of doing their thing.
Yeah.
And so that was one reason where I think when you particularly work against opponents and they don't at all or don't make big changes, then I think you can gain a pretty substantial edge. So I think for this particular field, and it was 80% the same players, I had a really good strategy after like 9 months, 12 months of work of how to play against them. And secondly, I think I just ran pretty well in terms of results, which is undeniable. So I think it's a mix of that. When someone has maybe 20, 25 BB per 100, which is a really high win rate in tournaments, and I had like maybe 13 BB online, and I think in those fields with this prep against that, I think it must have been like between 15 and 30 BB, and then it mixes together with just run good, then you will see some really outstanding results. And I think, I think I played very well, but I also think I ran very well, and that's the outcome.
Because it was like you were almost, your name was almost like a meme for a while, and that of course maybe helped you as well when you looked like invincible for many other players. And of course, how did you take advantage of that, or did you feel that a lot of players came up against you and said, "Oh no, not that guy"?
Yeah, I think that's actually a huge part of it, where my win rate probably increased even further. Is I think that there's a lot of elements to it, but the main ones that are very visible is people just start emotionally being burdened already. Like they make it much more complicated than it has to be, right? Like I don't have like a magic recipe to win every hand against them. I just like do some things well, like they do some things well, but like it's so much in their mind, like, oh, I don't know what he's doing, like he's winning every hand, like some people try to fight back, some people try to avoid me, and heavily over adjusting. And then also on the other end, I think they were just already thinking about losing. It's just you start just, oh, he's gonna, you play a hand and it's like, oh, he's gonna win again, and that leads to players making mistakes, or taking lines that try maybe to reduce variance, or like try to not go all in, like where just play your game. And it's very hard sometimes when you play against someone who runs really well. It's very hard to just keep playing your game and focus on that. It's very difficult.
Yeah, of course, that's how it is. The name Crown Up Guy, when did you establish that, and where did that come from?
I mean, it's just I was young, I had no idea what's going on.
It's kind of an odd name.
Yeah, it's an odd name, because in my mind it made a lot of sense, but then later, when you grow up, you understand it doesn't make as much sense. For me, it's basically a German to English translation, where I've always been young, and that's always been something that a lot of people around me have been making fun. So like a grown-up guy, where it's just like I'm not really grown up. I always felt a bit like a kid. And the other one is just kind of, in German, you would translate like you put a crown on your head, basically.
Yeah.
And that was the idea, is I just wanted to collect first places. And
okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Was there any specific, because live is kind of more interesting to talk about, even if, since you're playing live now, was there any live players that are still and that you really think that's the toughest opponent I had, or one of the toughest? Are there any names that you really feel like, damn, he's got my number?
I mean, it's phases too, but I would say back then or nowadays.
Yeah, both.
Okay. I would say back then, because there were some players that I think had I could tell like they have amazing potential. They're going to be fantastic, but I think they needed some work and refinement in some areas. Because I felt like back then it was a bit more like every player was, for me, clearly strong in some area and then not so strong in some other areas. And right now there's some players that I have a much harder time saying whether maybe not so strong.
Yeah.
So that means for me very clearly is they've been working 4, 5, 6 years, very in depth on their game. So back then, some of my favorite players, I mean, 2015, 16, like I really liked actually some players that were not so on the radar.
Yeah.
Like I really liked how Ole Shemion was playing back then, for example.
Yeah.
I really liked how Dan Coleman was playing. Like this a bit more like street poker aggressive approach. I think that actually was a really good winning style.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
They have a pretty, I wouldn't say similar style, but similar approach as a human in a way. Same tough style and cool and undeterred in a way. Yeah. And nowadays,
I mean, they were just really difficult to play against.
Yeah.
Because though they were actually never intimidated like that.
Right,
You know,
right,
they
right.
were just like they were just putting on the pressure
Yeah.
and just like doing their thing. And
Yeah.
I think nowadays there's actually 10, 15 ones that I could name. Like I really like how Mikita plays. I think he was a bit weaker in the beginning with like the life stuff because he just didn't have much life experience.
Yeah.
But he, I mean, now 7-8 years, like he's very very strong now. I think Stephen Chidwick, Jason Kuhn, like the whole English, American crew. Like I think Timothy Adams is probably one of my favorite players right now, just from well-roundedness.
Yeah.
I think Ike Hexton is really annoying to play against.
Yeah. He's got a particular style too. Yeah.
I mean, he's very tough. He's very tough. Like he hates folding. Like he's just he's very aggressive too in some way. Like he's very smart. He's putting you in lots of spots where there's some players that like don't really put you in that many spots. Like play solid and play well, but like there's some people who are just out there trying to put you in as difficult spots as possible.
But I mean, that's one of the charms and one of the keys to why poker is such a great game, because you have all these different opponents and different styles, and you have to adjust all the time, more or less. You cannot, especially in the high rollers. I mean, you cannot relax for a second, right?
I mean, they're out there to get you.
Yeah. What was when it comes to the community, when you had those years early on, and since you had such good results, was there room for anything else? I mean, you were late teens, early 20s. Did you spend too much time playing poker, or did you have time for life outside as well?
I mean, I did quite some other things, but I wouldn't say that I generally played too much poker for the majority of it, but I towards the end I definitely played more than I wanted to, or more than I had fun playing.
Okay. And
that was a big reason why I got out of it and took an intense break. So it wasn't it was quite hard for me to realize that I'm maybe not interested in the same things I used to be, and that requires a totally different setting. Yeah. So if it probably, if I would have just went down to, let's say, play 30% of my volume, I think I would have probably continued for a few years. But I didn't reduce volume, and then I just realized after a year, 1.5, like it's just too much. It's more than I want to.
I mean, different times, of course, it's a big difference from a decade back and now. And I mean, have you talked to young players that came up to you and asked you for advice besides the technical bit in poker? Have you spread that word and maybe given advice on not how to burn out in a way, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I have a group of 8 players that I mentor right now and help to go from mid stakes to high stakes, and I would say the majority of it is personal, actually. Right. Of course, you have the technical part, but I see this in every area I look into. There's obviously some exposure to other sports and to other areas, and in the end, I would say it's basically almost all of it is just mental. And you can see someone is just not, at 18, 19, 20, there's certain technical things you might be really far in or you might be very good at, but you're going to hit those blocks eventually that put you in, that make you face really difficult personal challenges because it is a very, very exposing environment. Poker is just going to put you in lots of really difficult spots where you will make mistakes, and then you need to sort yourself again afterwards and learn from them, and then continue. So I've never seen a career where it's just like, you're young, you're good, you improve, and smooth sailing till the end. Like that's not
No.
that's not how it works.
We know quite a few stories about players that have been so talented and kind of crashed and burned a little early and went through a few things that could have been avoided. But the thing is that, especially earlier years, there were not too many advisors, because if a young player, went up too big, who are they going to listen to if they're like one of the best in the world? There's no one to advise them, more or less, especially,
Which I think it doesn't have to be in poker. I think it's really just more generic things, like just very basic things that mostly you learn from your parents, or things that are, like in your direct surrounding, or generally relationships, loyalty, but also standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, like understanding your needs, doing things that are healthy for you, like that. Just very, very basic things that you go through in this environment and realize, like, you're just not good at. You're not good at, like, you're chasing this thing to, like, get some form of emotional reward, and with that comes all that baggage. You start realizing, fuck, like I'm just not good at stopping. I'm not good at listening to my body or what I need. Like, I'm not good at keeping and building healthy relationships. Like, suddenly all that comes just like crashing down.
Yeah, of course. No, that's interesting. And I mean, a hike or a hobby outside poker can be so much value for you at the table if you spend the time right and rest right and train right. Have you been good with because, like, I remember when Martin Jakobsson, my fellow Swede, won, and before that, I mean, there's several players that are known for it, how important it is to eat well and work out and so on. Has that been something that you worked on as well?
Yeah, I spent quite some time with that, especially when I played full time. But to be honest, I don't have this very intuitive connection that it just comes out of me, that it's just doing something nice for myself. Like, let's say a workout is something I do for myself or I enjoy. Like, I don't feel that way. It's more, as you described it, I have this rational thought that a workout is good because I'm healthier, I increase performance, and then I set a plan and try to execute it. And this was always a struggle for me, is then I had a personal trainer to kind of keep me accountable. And so this way I could tick the box, but now I'm in a bit different position where I want to explore that more, to actually, like, feel it, to eat good because it's good for myself, or to do all those things because I actually own and I feel responsible for those things. I feel responsible for my own health. It's actually something, it's a bit difficult to say as well, but, like, I didn't used to feel that. I didn't used to feel like, oh, this is nice, I do this for myself, like, I'm going to feel better afterwards. I didn't feel that way.
I understand. I understand that. That's an important bit. And to also maybe test yourself outside. I mean, test your boundaries when it comes to staying back from things, staying healthy. Don't do that. Force yourself to do things. It's a good practice. Are you in a good, healthy position today, would you say? A strange question. Strange
no,
question.
it's a good question. It's a medium. I would say I need a little bit in lots of areas. I learned a lot by experiencing something myself, and I think in this regard I have to feel a little bit of the pain to start to feel an intrinsic motivation to change those things in a sustainable way. And so right now, I used to have, like, a structure where I do sports, like, between 1 and 4 times a week, and now I do less of that. And now I don't wake up and feel like, oh, I need to move today, but I can feel it now that, like, I feel a bit slower, like I feel less healthy. And so I think I need to feel a bit of that pain and uncomfortableness to be like, no, I got to do this in a way that's good for me, and not because of ticking a box.
Yeah, so some people are fond of going to the gym or go out running or something. It's not my cup of tea, really. When you say sports, what would that be?
I always used to love football. I enjoy it a bit less right now.
To
But
play
I like
in a
all
team,
kinds of.
like.
Yeah, yeah. It's an amateur. We have like a hobby round here, which is really fun actually. But it's it's less fun than it used to be. I used to love. Like this used to be my go-to jam. Now it's like it's fun, but not uh, not as fun anymore. And so now I always loved climbing, like or hiking. I love hiking. I like climbing. I like anything enduring that's outside. I like a lot. So I think I'll switch a bit more to just rowing,
Yeah.
biking,
Yeah,
hiking, stuff
that
like
sounds
that.
good. That sounds good. Yeah, that's good. I know we talked a little bit about mentoring. A big part of your life right now is also the poker code. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do there and how much time you spend
Sure.
on it?
I would say I spend a third to half of my time on it. So actually,
Wow.
quite a lot of my active time. The idea behind is really it's more an emotional thing. There's two sides for me to it. The first one I really enjoy is this giving to people where it's received in a way that they're actually really grateful for it.
Hmm.
Which is nice because I don't think about money then. Like I don't break down. Like I used to do this where I coach for an hourly, and so I did that, and I always felt a little like it felt weird. Like I it's very like transactional. Of like, was this a good session? It's like how much is it worth? Like $2, $3, $4, $5,000, and then. But I never was like, oh, this is amazing. Like I'm enjoying this. And now with Poker Code, it's just I I I just want to build a great experience and great product for poker players who are really passionate about poker. And to be frank, if someone is not passionate about it, like that, I don't care. Like they're just in the wrong place. So it's more for someone who's like, I love poker. Like I want to get better. Like they're excited about learning something new. They're excited about their journey and their process. And I realize it doesn't matter if I might even like it more if someone is, an amateur and like wants to take it more serious and like wants to be more competitive, rather than this like, oh, I make this and this much money. I want to make more money and like now teach me ways to do that. Like that's not something that that excites me. So
It feels a bit unpersonal. Is that how you say it? Like a little bit
yeah.
like that.
And
Yeah.
and the second part is to just in terms of an operational, like I founded a few companies, and some of my very close friends are startup founders, like very successful as well. And there, it's just really about the team and operations aspect. I just love building a company that's very effective with qualified people that just really enjoy what they're doing. So that's actually a bit more my baby of like, I love improving those processes and just having a really good functioning team and company.
So you mean, obviously outside poker, totally outside, not to do with poker. You mean, like companies
I
that
mean,
do other things?
this one, so Poker Code particularly now,
Yeah,
I
of
mean
course.
that company, but this has to do with poker, but it's
course.
more like, it's more just a practice of, with there, you have to understand all these different aspects. You have to understand SEO, marketing, content, production, like it's tech heavy as well. Like it's community heavy. So there's all these aspects. I just love getting, like, it's a good example to get into them, to learn how they work. And then I might probably do something in a different area in a few years. And so it's a nice practice ground to build this company, make this really effective, and then have the tool set to repeat it again somewhere else.
I mean, we always talk about strategy, and of course, building a company can be quite much like, I wouldn't say a game, but it's kind of the strategy needed to run a company is also something that requires a lot of things that you need at the poker table as well, in a way, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think the strategy part is very important, but I would say that the human part is much more important.
Right. Excellent.
Every time it comes to this, it's you can set a strategy, but the execution in the end only depends on the people. And so the strategy part for me is generally rather clear. So even when we work on this right now, it's like in most companies, I think it is. Like, I don't think you need a very mostly I think the strategy is rather clear, and then it's much more difficult to identify how do we get there.
Yeah.
What is the most effective way to get there? And then it's even harder in the day-to-day to prioritize properly, execute effectively, like say no to things that don't matter. Like that, I think, is 90% of the difficulty.
Yeah. I understand that. Okay. Well, of course, it's always interesting to talk about highlights and specific moments when you've been playing poker. But I mean, were for a few years you were really highly ranked in the world. You were number one ranked for a while, weren't you? Was there a specific win that you kind of remember specifically that stands out for you? One or two wins?
Yeah, W Group Online,
Yeah.
2014. WSOP 100K one drop 2016, and maybe in terms of not nicest win because it wasn't a win, but like also roller coaster, probably the 1 million one drop, second place.
Yeah.
These were probably three pretty memorable tournaments.
When it comes to things in life, it's, well, of course, second place is amazing, obviously, but sometimes like a loss or a beat makes a better story, if you know what I mean. It makes a bigger impact.
I would have preferred to win.
Of course, but yeah, of course, obviously. But the second was still amazing. But I mean,
yeah.
Sometimes I can find things in life when it's kind of, there's a bump in the road. It's kind of interesting, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think this one was particularly big, not because of the money, just really because of this was a very clearly emotional one. Like, playing against Bonomo, but then also like the difference between first and second felt so huge. Like we even made a heads up deal, so financially it was not a big difference, but it was just like I just wanted to win it so badly. So I think that's why this one is still in my memory.
One of the best and one of the most painful, maybe. I understand that. I understand that, and maybe that's one of the parts that made you a successful poker player and successful human in a way. Just that enough part of just want to win. Even if you're a nice guy, you still want to be a beast out there, right?
I mean, I guess it plays a role, definitely. Yeah. It has to be tamed to a degree, but yeah, wanting to win or wanting to do your best in a like dynamic, energetic way, is, I think, much healthier. But sometimes it helps channeling that when you just want to just want to win.
Yeah. The Triton series, that's what you put your focus on now, Fedor. And what do you think of the series and what it has become?
I mean, I love it. It's the most well-run poker tournament, and exactly in the way I think it should be done. Like, I could not think of... They sent out these feedback emails, and I had like 2-3 very small notes. Like, there's obviously always like minor things to improve, but generally I just think it's an extremely well-run tournament series, and I'm very, very happy that it exists, because it's definitely a thing that pulls me back into poker over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, it's an expensive series for players, but it's also expensive to arrange. And I mean, since it's so well run, the costs for the players to take part in these tournaments, besides the buy-ins, is not a problem for that group of players. I mean, is that the general idea of the players, that it's really great?
Yeah, I would say so. I think at least I don't know someone who's like who didn't like it. I think, some stops might be more interesting than others. Like Vietnam now was interesting. I absolutely loved Madrid. This was probably my favorite tournament stop of all time. And Cyprus, I think, is nice. So I think it's really going to be about which venues they select. But I think they've been doing a really good job with that, because they're players themselves. So they have very high expectations. I think they have the capital to fund it. And I think now they're probably, hopefully, reaping rewards, because I think now it should be at a size where it's where it has the potential for them to become a profitable business as well. And so I'm very glad, and I think that's exactly what the community was looking for, is to have something recurring like this in a good spots where you can play some exciting high stakes poker.
Yeah, we who watch on the side definitely hope that they're gonna do well and find a good business with it, because it's such a big value of watching it. It's just amazing. And is there anything? I remember in the early years when we had whole cards, and it became like the people got to see it more. What was your thought about that? Has it ever been something that you thought was not good for you personally, or if it was more worth for the poker community as a whole, that people were able to see the whole cards and so on?
I think it's totally fine. Like, I mean, of course, there's some stuff where, you know, it can be giving away some things, some exploits or some ideas or some concepts, but it's I think it's a much bigger net overall to create great content. Like, I think that's what poker has been missing, and I think actually there's some great content creators out there. And I think that is really, really, really important, is that we have good content in TV or on Twitch, on streams, like content creators, individual characters. I think that type of character building, like, I think that was missing a bit over the last years, just because there was no good content format. There was nothing in the last 5 years that was just... and I think now Triton actually is doing that again, which I think is very nice. So we just need a drive to survive now, and I think we're good to go.
Okay, yeah, that's good. All right. Anyway, outside this, we look forward to see more Triton. Of course, I love to watch the series there. It's amazing, and hopefully, they're successful in doing it. Now, privately, I know you have a girlfriend now, right?
I do.
You've been together for long?
2.5 years almost now.
All right, good.
Yeah.
You enjoy? Do you enjoy? It's a tough question to say no to. Do you enjoy it?
Yes.
Do you enjoy? Let me rephrase. Do you enjoy that life that having a girlfriend is like?
Yeah, I do. It's definitely the first like very serious relationship where now it's like family and children is a topic, and some. I can feel like I'm planning a bit more ahead as well, of anticipating that, which is exciting and different. But yeah, I feel good. There's obviously challenges as well. She lives in Berlin, I live in Vienna, so we have to sort out that part, and that comes with some stuff because someone has to give something up, and it needs some. It requires some acclimatization, and besides that, she's a very positive human being, which is very good for me because I'm a bit more skeptical, and that's good for my soul. So I'm very happy to be with her.
Oh, that's great. I remember many years ago, one of the first people who talked about the importance of things. We talk a bit about outside poker, how important it is. Barry Greenstein in Ace on the River, I think he wrote about the importance and why it's good to have a relationship outside poker. And no one had ever talked about it. It was only, how to play different kinds of hands. So it is an important factor. It's one of the tools that you should have as a poker player. Get a good girlfriend, right?
Yeah, good friends, good relationships in general is massive. Yeah, very important.
You said Berlin and Vienna. You live in Vienna, right?
I live in Vienna.
Yeah. Where do you? I mean, it's not that far. How far is it between Berlin and Vienna in car?
8 hours.
Yeah, it's quite a long drive. It's better to fly.
Yeah, 1.5 hours.
Yeah,
1:15.
How does the future plan look for you to when it comes to maybe living together full time?
She's moving to Vienna is the plan right now, but we still have to figure out the details. So.
Okay, all right. It can be good too to have like a relationship when you meet and you decide when to meet as well. It's not a bad thing. Sounds good, Fedor. It was good talking to you. I mean, there's so much to talk about, and what's in hand in the nearest future for you?
Maybe Vegas.
You haven't decided on the World Series? You haven't decided?
No, I didn't like the schedule so much. I mean, no, let's say it like this. I like the schedule. I just it's hard for me to cut out like a good trip. So that was the I can't go in the early June, so I'm missing the high rollers. And then towards the main, it's basically the main. I would have loved if the high rollers overlap with the main more, so you can do like a 2-week trip and play high rollers in main. But I will probably go from the 7th to the 17th, which is like the main and the 10K WPT, and then try and play as many WSOP events as possible. So that's the
Did you say the 7th of July to 17th?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, so more or less the main, and then
basically the main, and I think there's like 2 or 3 other bracelet events. Yeah.
Yeah, is there not? I know some people said that since it's understandable that they want to bring in the high rollers and the players early to keep them there and so on. It's understandable. Is there not an option to go there and go home? Because I mean, 7 weeks is too much. Of course,
it's just for me. Like I can't do that trip twice.
We're Europeans. I mean, we don't want to miss out on half of the great time of the year in our parts of the world.
That's someone understands, especially when you're from Sweden. You'd understand because in Sweden the period is even holier. It's like,
my God,
I mean, May to September is just it's like Sweden is just the most beautiful country, and then for the other 6 months you have to go somewhere else.
Have you been there much?
I mean, it's absolutely incredible. When you go there in August or something, you think it's the nicest place on earth, and then,
it is, yeah.
And then you're there in November, and you think,
how come you came to Sweden, and how when were you? Have you been there much?
I mean, a few times. I've been. I mean, I love Scandinavia. I have friends, like Danish friends, mostly. So yeah, I've been quite a bit to Denmark, Sweden, Norway. Never to Finland, but. Yeah.
Now we just talked about it. It's like you have to understand being Swedish and having Swedish friends. Maybe this time of the year we're coming out of the cave in a way, because we struggled for 6 months with just barely staying alive mentally. I mean, it's just awful. And then in the summer we become,
that's why it's so nice as a tourist, because you don't know how it was. No. So for you, it's just. People are out there. Yeah. Everyone is laughing and having a good time and friendly,
looking good,
and and you're just how this is just
I know.
The nicest.
If you come there in January, you go like, oh, this is horrible. I have to turn around and go back before they eat me or something.
It's just dark all the time.
It's like, horrible. People are
everyone
dark.
is sad. Like it's super pricey.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, Fedor. Maybe we have a talk again sometime in the future. And there's always plenty to talk about. Will you be a poker player in 10 years as well?
Let's see about that.
That's a good roundup of this talk. Okay, Fedor. Take care of yourself and your girlfriend and Poker Code and everything, and we'll follow you. And if you have a win, maybe we'll have a talk then. Okay.
Sounds great, Ricard.
Okay, Fedor. Take care. Well, that was a pleasure talking to Fedor in Vienna, and really interesting to hear about his life. We're looking forward to see more of Fedor in the future, and maybe a new talk later down the line. This episode was powered by our partners, of course, at Every Game Poker and Juicy Stakes Poker. And hit that subscribe button if you liked what you saw. See you next time.